What do the top sales thought leaders in the entire industry all have in common? I'm talking guys like Alex Hormozi, Daniel G., Matthew Ryder, and Jeremy Miner. If you don't know those names, I would go on YouTube and subscribe to their accounts because they put out some amazing info. But the one thing they all have in common is that they started in fitness sales. Now, why is that relevant? The reason it's relevant is because it tells you how hard fitness sales is, because if you can make it in fitness sales, you can make it in any avenue of sales. Now, these guys have grown to, millions of followers and made multi-millions in sales revenue, but it all started with understanding how to sell fitness because it makes everything else easier. And so I want to show you the fitness sales approach that we've developed in my company, that I teach all of my salespeople, that have helped us sell over 1,000 memberships in 2024 alone, and tens of thousands of memberships throughout my career. This is the exact process that I've taken and adapted from the books that I've read and the people that I've worked with to close more sales than ever before. Let's get started. So let me create some context here. Fitness sales is so difficult because we are selling a product that nobody wants to have to buy. It's a product that doesn't produce an immediate result. There's a long delay in the gratification, unlike some of these faster weight loss products that people can buy or other options for losing weight like supplement plans and diet routines and GLP-1 services these days. Number two is it's a product that sucks. It's something the people that need it the most have the hardest time doing it. They're either the most overweight, the most in pain, or the most uncomfortable taking part in a sound fitness program. So you're asking people to pay a lot of money for something that is very uncomfortable. Number three is it puts them in a very socially awkward and embarrassing situation that leaves them very vulnerable, which is one of the strongest drivers away from taking action. The social aspect is one of the biggest reasons why somebody will not sign up for the gym, especially if you're in a market like mine where we cater to a higher income demographic. These people generally sit in a higher social status in whatever area of life they are in, whether they're country club members, CEOs of companies, or managers, or people that are high up in the local school boards or parent-teacher organizations. These people hold a high level of status, generally, not everybody, but you're asking them to join something where they're going to be right at the bottom of the totem pole. And this is a very hard decision to stick with if that's the type of person that you're selling to. So these are all the reasons why fitness sales is so hard. So don't beat yourself up if you don't like sales, you don't feel that you're good at sales, because what I'm going to teach you today is going to solve all of those problems for you and help you get more members in your gym that stay longer. So here's how we start. This sales conversation happens not only in the initial, maybe it's a consult, a one-on-one consult. It can also happen on the phone if you're just setting appointments. This same exact conversational framework is going to be relevant in so many contexts. I'll even tell you it's relevant if you're meeting with a client on the training floor and you want to upsell them into a higher price membership. It's even relevant if you want to get them to try some of your supplements. This conversational framework transcends all aspects of sales, and so much of what we do is sales. So this conversational framework has 7 stages that you are going to work through in a specific order. And this is adapted from what's called the Sandler sales methodology. And Sandler adapted this into what's called a submarine, a sales submarine. And the reason they did, if you have a visual of a submarine, there's multiple compartments as you move from the nose all the way to the tail. And the idea is, if there was a torpedo that hit the front of the submarine, you want to make sure that you can lock every compartment completely solid shut before moving to the next. Because if water is flooding that compartment, when you shut that down, there is no going back. And you want to take the exact same sales idea into your sales process, where if you move from one part of the sales conversation to the next, you want to make sure that you have completely smoked out everything in that area, because when you lock that door, there is no going back. So I hope that submarine analogy makes sense, because what most people try to do, or the mistake most people make, is they jump around. They let the other person take control over the conversation and, ask all the questions. And if that happens, when you leave a certain aspect of the sale, like building rapport with the client or setting the agenda, which we're going to talk about, you can't go back to it if you move too far away. So it's vitally, vitally important to understand how to control the conversation so that you can control when you move from one stage of the process to the next. So with all that being said, the most important thing that I want you to take away from that is controlling the conversation. And this is a skill that can be developed even if you are really, really bad at it right now. So with that said, let's get started into the 7-stage sales process that you can use to close more memberships. So the first stage is simple. It is building rapport. So rapport is just a connection to, it's a sense of trust that you develop with the person. This can happen really fast with some people. It can happen slowly with other people. But there's really a few things that you can do if you're in person or on the phone. It's just establishing a sense of likeness to the person. So this idea of likeness comes from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. One of the laws of influence is establishing a sense of likeness, as in, you are like me and I am like you. So whether you look like the person or not, if it's a male, female, or a African-American, Caucasian dynamic, doesn't matter quite as much as establishing some sense of likeness. And you can bring some theatrics to this. If they drove a certain car in, you could say, oh, I had that car before, or I love Fords, right? Establishing some sense of likeness is incredibly important to get the conversation off on the right foot. And again, all it takes is one little stroke. I've jokingly used like, oh, your name's Mary, that's my mom's name, right? Or little phrases that just establish some likeness, like, hey, just letting you know, I am just like you. So that's the first stage. Doesn't take very long, and you can usually establish rapport with a really good handshake, some sort of compliment or some sort of remark that establishes that, like, oh, hey, you're wearing a Penn State sweatshirt? Like, I love Penn State. I'm a Lion, or whatever it is. And I have to ask you a huge, huge favor. Can you please follow or subscribe, whatever platform you're on, subscribe or follow this content. I'm trying to get in front of a bigger audience and help more people in the industry. So hit subscribe or follow, and let's get into it. So once you've gotten through the rapport stage, the next thing you're going to do is probably the most important part of the first half of the sales conversation, and that is called managing the expectations. Some people might call this setting the agenda, but what you're doing is you're telling them exactly what's going to happen on this call. It's so critical to do this because what you're doing is you're establishing control. This works in a lot of different ways, but really what you want to do is, hey, I'm going to ask you a couple questions to learn about what made you want to reach out. Then you will have the opportunity to ask me about the gym, and I'll answer all the questions that you have. And then finally, you'll be able to decide if this is a good fit. If not, no hard feelings. It happens all the time. Maybe I can refer you somewhere that's a better fit. If so, I'll tell you how you can get started with us today. Does that sound good? So what I just did in that one statement was tell them, I'm going to ask the questions first, then you will be able to, so I'm going to ask the questions and learn about why you reached out, what you're hoping to get from the program and all of that. Then number two, you will be able to ask me the questions. So you're establishing the flow of the conversation. And then finally, I'm making it very clear that the end of this conversation must end in a decision. All right. It's either, hey, it's not the right fit, no hard feelings, or it is the right fit, and I'm going to tell you how you can get started with us today. All right. So that's what you want to set in the expectations, or manage in the expectations, is that I'm going to ask you some questions about why you reached out. You're going to have the chance to ask whatever questions you need to have asked. And at the end, it's either going to be a yes or a no, right? And then I always like to end with, does that sound good? So that's how you manage expectations. Where people mess this up is they don't make it clear that a decision must be made. They kind of end it in a little bit vague or wishy-washy or soft, where they're like, yeah, and then we'll see where it goes from there, right? Or, hey, I want to learn a little bit about you and see if it's a good fit. Does that sound good, right? But that's not true. The truth is we need to come to a decision here, all right? And let's save both of us the time and come to a real decision, because really, I'm not looking to just see if it's the right fit. I want to see if it's the right fit and show you exactly how you can start training with us and get you the results that you want. All right. So I'm a big stickler for that. Is like, you have to make it clear that the end of this is a decision that is going to be made. The finesse and the skill comes from doing that in a way that's not super pushy and bossy and comes off like a jerk. So the next aspect is what we call, the standard term is discovery, but it's really just, how can you help this person, or what's the problem that they need solved? My rule with discovery is you do not move to the next stage or batten down that hatch unless you have asked 5 questions. So a minimum of 5 questions must be asked by the salesperson before you move on and give any information at all. Because the truth is, most people are liars. Most prospects are liars. That's an old Sandler saying. But really what it means is people are going to withhold information that exposes them to vulnerability. They're going to answer in really vague answers. So if you say like, well, what made you want to reach out? I'm like, I just want to like get in better shape. Okay. If you just take that at face value and you start selling to that problem, you have not gotten the real problem, or at least you have not made the problem big enough. Your goal is to dig further and deeper to the biggest pain point that they have and make it as real and visceral as possible. Not only is that going to make them want to take action, but it's going to make you more valuable to them so you can sell a higher ticket product. So I have, Sandler calls it the pain funnel. Basically, it starts with general questions. What made you want to reach out? What was it about us that, prompted you to contact us, right? Very basic questions. And then it's going to go more narrow. What have you done in the past, right? And drilling into the success that they've had in the past or the things that they liked about the previous programs. The next line of questioning is going to be, specific goals. So what specifically are you hoping to get from the program? You want to make sure you end this in like a very concrete fashion. Don't let it stop at like, I just want to get in better shape, or I want to lose weight. You want to make sure that you're like, how much weight are you looking to lose? Or is there a specific goal that you're looking to accomplish? That's where you really want to get to in the goal setting aspect. And the last, most narrow function of the discovery section is what I call the buying criteria. So establishing buying criteria is where you finish this line of questioning with, can I just ask, what are you hoping to find from a personal trainer or gym to know that you've found the right fit? And they're going to tell you exactly what their buying criteria is. And then you can start feeling more confident selling to them, right? Now, the reason this is so critical that you don't just sell to the first answer you get, or if somebody tells you, I just want to lose weight, and you start selling to that, you have no idea what picture they have in their head about what it's going to look like. You see, everybody has an image in their head of what they want from the gym. You have no idea. They may be thinking that they need curves. They may be thinking that they need cardio because their doctor told them that a year ago. They may be thinking that they need machines because their doctor told them or their chiropractor told them it's the safest way to train. When you don't know the answer for exactly what they are looking for, there's a very, 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 very good chance that you're going to describe a product or a service that does not align with what they think they need. So you might say like, oh, well, we do circuit training. It's great for weight loss. And in their head, they're like, oh, wow, that's CrossFit. And they're never going to say that, but that's where their head goes. So that's why 5-question minimum is my rule. And that's a minimum where you go from broad to narrow questioning, ending with what's called the buying criteria. So you can safely say, if you've asked 5 questions and you've gotten really specific about what they're looking for, why us? So another great question is, what was it about us compared to other gyms that made you want to contact us, right? And I'll typically frame it like this. And I'll say, hey, I'll be honest, there's a lot of gyms in the area. Was there something specific about our program that made you want to reach out to us versus anybody else? And a lot of times they'll tell you, like, oh, I saw you specialize in people over 40, or I saw that my friend blah, blah, blah goes there and she has great results and I want to do what she's doing. That's a really strong indicator and really good aspects of the sales conversation that you can take it in that you would never know if you didn't ask more questions. All right. Now, here's where my sales flow gets a little bit unconventional. You've built rapport, you've managed the expectations, and you've done discovery. Most people are ready to sell. I am not ready to sell at this point. My process involves going directly to the objections that they may have, or what we call the in the ways. You want to address anything that could be in the way of them joining your gym today, okay? What is critical and the most important part of this is that you, the salesperson, bring up the in the ways. You do not let them bring up price. You do not let them bring up schedule. And you do not let them bring up anything that you identify as potentially in the way. If they do that, you have lost control of the conversation. So you must find a way to talk about the hardest part of the conversation as early as possible. I would even allow or encourage somebody to bring up price before discovery, before the expectations. The earlier you can handle that, because it is on their mind, the more trustworthy you are going to look. And the more going to be like, wow, this guy's not hiding anything. Okay. Never, ever do the thing where you're like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that later. I just need to ask you a few questions. Maybe that worked 10, 15 years ago, but people are so hip to that. They ask the pricing question to catch you pushing it off. And that's their red flag to know that you're a cheesy salesperson. You're doing that sales thing. So you never want to let them ask it. You want to ask the question that you're afraid to hear the answer to. And here's how we do it. So the number one thing is price, right? That's the number one hurdle that most people have. So I generally, and I'll give you the caveat in a second, I generally always start with the price. And I say, hey, I think we may be able to help you out. Do you mind if we talk about the cost? Because I'm sure it's on your mind. Okay. So that's how I bring up, hey, can we just talk about the price? Do you mind if I talk about the price? And I'll tell you why I say that later. And then you're like, oh yeah, that would be great. They're going to be so happy that you brought it up and they don't awkwardly have to like sneak it in and feel vulnerable, letting you know that they may not be able to afford it or that is on their mind. Because again, social vulnerability is a big detractor. So the fact that you answer, huge trust builder, it's going to make you look way more professional and way more in control. So that's how you're going to present the price objection. And then what's really important is that you establish some context around the pricing. Most people, especially, again, if you're listening to this, you probably serve a similar demographic to myself. It's the over 40 fat loss population. They've not seen success in a lot of other gyms. So what's important is you establish context about what you do and who the real comparisons are. So for example, if you're on the conversation with them and you're in discovery and they're like, the only thing I've done in the past was Planet Fitness, it's safe to say they are comparing you to Planet Fitness. Now, my gyms are, $400 plus per month. So that's going to be a massive, massive, massive difference. It's going to be so much higher than they've ever thought about spending on fitness that it's going to be jarring for them. Okay. So that's important to know. So in the discovery, you want to have established the context for what they understand about fitness and its costs. Now, if they've said, oh yeah, I did in-home personal training for years and the guy just moved away, so I'm looking for a new gym, you can safely assume that they were paying $100 or more per session. So if that's the case, my gym is going to be way less expensive than that. All right. It's an important note. Now, this is how you go on to present that conversation, because whatever experience and context they have is what is called their anchor. Okay. Their anchor is where that they are mentally going to calibrate your price from theirs. So again, if they have $10 a month in their head as their fitness paradigm, which is their worldview, whatever you say is going to be moving up from there. Okay. If they have $100 a session, that is their fitness paradigm. That's what they know fitness or good trainers to cost. If you're lower, that is a good thing. All right. What's amazing is, and this is the psychological anchoring effect, you can reset the anchor very, very easily. Okay. Any number that you say in this moment is going to reset their anchor. So I'm going to give you the two options without going too deep into this, because this is what I coach my salespeople on for months and months and months. If you've established that their anchor is really low, like they've only done Planet Fitness, you're going to reset it by saying, hey, well, you said you've never done personal training. Is that right? And they're going to say, no, I just did Planet Fitness. And we're going to say, oh, well, the reason I ask is because sometimes the price can really shock people. Have you ever looked into personal training? I mean, I've seen it go from 60 to 150 an hour, right? So you are kind of in a very nice way saying like, don't be shocked when I tell you this price, because it can range from 70 to 150 an hour. Pause for a half second. Let them react to that statement. If they're like, oh yeah, I know, like I did all my research or my friends do it, you've got an easier runway. But if they're like, whoa, that's a lot higher than I was hoping to spend, then you want to respond with, well, the nice thing about our program is we do small group personal training. So our sessions run from $40 to $50 a session. Is that reasonable at all for you? Okay. So you've in an instant reset their mental paradigm, their anchor from $10 to $150 a session. And now you've dropped the anchor. So they've calibrated from $150. That's what they're expecting you to say. And now they heard 45 and they're like, oh yeah, that's reasonable. Okay. If you just said 45 from that $10 a month thing, you will not get that answer. I can promise you that. So that's how you drop the anchor when somebody has a very low anchor set. If they have a very high anchor set, all right, then you want to just reestablish that anchor for them. And you would do it this way. Be like, oh, well, you did say you've done personal training in the past, right? And they're like, yeah, I was doing it in-home. Like, so you know how this works. You know it's more than your standard gym. You were probably paying $100, $150 an hour. And they're going to be like, yeah, I was paying $125 an hour and blah, blah, blah. And I know it was a big investment. And you'd be like, oh, well, the nice thing about our program is because we do small group training, our pricing is between $40 and $50 a session. Is that at all reasonable for you? Okay. That's a much easier sale. Okay. But you want to reestablish the anchor and say, hey, we are up there with that in-home training, but our pricing is here just due to the way that we run our sessions. All right. So without going too deep into the pricing anchor, I'm going to do another episode on that entire conversation flow as well and the psychology behind it. That's how you handle the pricing objection. Okay. So the next objection that they probably have is schedule. All right. So if you have identified that this person has, and just a reminder, we're in the objection handling stage of the sales process, which happens right after discovery. If you have uncovered throughout your discovery that they're super busy and they travel a lot, okay, that schedule and having a consistent training schedule is going to be the issue, that's the objection that you want to focus on maybe first, maybe before pricing, if it's that chaotic of a schedule. And you would just do that by like, hey, you mentioned traveling a lot. Do you mind if we just talk about how our scheduling works? Because we are a personal training studio and we ask you to schedule your sessions in advance. Do you mind if we just talk about that and see if it's reasonable at all for you? So that's how you're going to present that. You're going to explain however your scheduling works. For us, people book their sessions in advance and they're locked into those sessions. So that's kind of how we address that. We call it the in the ways, and we kind of present it in a sense of like, the tone is really important. We present it in a way that's like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work for you. I just want to get this out of the way so that we don't waste any time if this is totally unrealistic for you. Okay. So that's the critical part of handling the objections. The most important thing is you, the salesperson, present the objection and let them overcome it. Okay. And if they have an issue with it, or they just can't afford it, there are objection overcomes. I'm not going to go into that today. That'll be another future episode. Mind you, if you've been following this, you have not said a single thing about what you do. You have not sold your gym. You have not talked about the training that you do. You haven't talked about the equipment that you have. It's important that you hold off on any of that until you've overcome all of these stages. So just to recap, we've done rapport, we've managed expectations, we've done discovery, we've overcome all the objections. Now we can talk about what we do. So this is what I call the permission to sell phase. So why do I call it the permission to sell phase? Is because I've studied hypnotherapy, NLP, and motivational interviewing. And what I know about conversational skill and influence and persuasion is that you always want to give people the perception of control. And you always want to make it feel like they are leading the conversation, even though you are really in control. And so I never make statements without asking for permission or try to sell without asking for permission. If I just dove in and be like, all right, well, we can definitely solve your problem and we do this training and we can get you this result, their sales reactance defense mechanisms is going to go up. So you bypass that psychologically by asking for permission. And so once you've overcome the objections, you've established that they can afford it, that the schedule's going to work or whatever the in the ways are, you're going to say, hey, well, it sounds like we may be a good fit. Do you mind if I tell you how our program works? And then you'll be able to decide if it's worth trying us out. Okay. I say that specifically. Do you mind? So that's the permission. If I tell you how our program works, and then you will be able to decide. So that's nurturing their sense of control and autonomy if you'd like to join the gym. Okay. So that's the first part of the permission to sell phase. And the next aspect of this is important, is you only sell to the problem that they have. This is a very big mistake a lot of people make, is they just dump information. Like, oh, well, we do small group personal training and sessions are an hour long and we have sessions at 5:30 and 6:30 and 9 a.m. And you just vomit information on people that they didn't ask. None of it is relevant. Because if you've done a good enough discovery, you know exactly what they need. You know exactly what time they're going to train. You know exactly what routine they should be following. And if you didn't get all that, you got to do better discovery. Okay. So only sell to the problem that they have. And you want to do this in a prescriptive type of sale. So, and you constantly also want to nurture their autonomy and make sure they're following. In motivational interviewing, they call this language pattern elicit, provide, elicit. And it sounds like this. So do you mind if I tell you about how our program works and then you'll be able to decide if it's a good fit for you? And they're going to say, yes. You say, awesome. Well, you mentioned you want to lose weight and you needed a more personalized approach. So we do small group personal training. So every time you come in, you'll share the session with up to 6 other people and everything's totally individualized to your needs. Does that sound like what you're looking for? Okay. So I just gave one little bit of information and I said, does that sound what you want? Are you sure that that's what you're looking for? Does that make sense to you? Okay. And you repeat that language pattern over and over and over, because what you're doing is getting what's called a yes set. And this comes from the hypnosis world where they say, yes, that is what I want. Yes, that is what I want. Yes, that does sound good. And at the end of that, you ask for the sale and they're going to be like, yeah, I guess let's do it. So just to keep going, this is what the language pattern sounds like so that you can practice this with your own gym. Do you mind if I tell you what we do and you'll decide if it's a good fit? The answer is yes. Great. Well, we do small group personal training, so we're able to combine the individualized nature of private training with the energy of a group. Does that sound like what you're looking for at all? They say yes, because you already know that that's what they want. Like, great. And we also do custom nutrition coaching so that we'll help you identify exactly what to eat to get the results that you want. Do you think that would be helpful for you? The answer is yes. Okay, cool. And most people see really good results when they train with us like 2, maybe 3 days a week. Is that realistic for your schedule at all? Okay. So you're breaking up the sales pitch into micro statements followed by, are you following that? Does that make sense? And you're getting them in nod their heads and you're giving them space to come along with you in the conversation. If you find yourself going more than 10 seconds of talking without asking a question, you're fucking it up. So you want to bring them along and give them a chance to interject, ask for clarity, get clear on whatever you're saying or make sure they're following. Because if you confuse them, you lose them. All right. So that's the permission to sell phase. And then after that, the last question that you ask is, well, it sounds like it should be a good fit. Do you think you'd like to join the program? Or what do you think we should do next is one of my favorites. If you've done all these things, there's a very good chance they're going to say they want to sign up because you've confirmed the price, you've gotten the schedule, you've sold them on what you do, you've painted the picture of the results they're going to get. What's really important next is a confirmed next steps. Okay, so this is where whatever they say, you're going to outline exactly what happens next. All right, so hey, this is what happens next. I'm going to send you a waiver. You're going to fill it out. There's a credit card information in there, and you'll be locked in. I'm going to book you for your first session. We said tomorrow at 9 a.m., and you're going to be in there with blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to lock all that in, okay? Most people would think that's an easy step. Most people would think the conversation is over from there, but it's not. The killer to most sales is buyer's remorse. When they get off the phone and they realize they didn't think of something, or there's some conflict in their schedule, or there's something they forgot to ask, and now you have no ability to handle it. So mentally, they're just gonna be like, oh, no, this doesn't work. And they either end up no showing or not filling out the waiver. I know a lot of you guys have waivers that are sent out that never get completed. This is the solve, and I call it the reaffirm the sale stage. This is the final stage of the process. It's where you reaffirm and get a referral. So when the confirmation is set, you've closed the sale or you've booked the appointment, you're going to say, hey, before I let you go, my biggest fear is that, we get off this phone and you remember something comes up and you can't make the appointment, and then, we can't be there to help you out. Is there any reason that you wouldn't be able to show up at whatever time it was? Okay. Let them double down. The goal of this stage is to get them to double or triple down on the appointment or the confirmation. Let them tell you like, oh no, it's already in my calendar. I'm all set. I've got my credit card at my hand. The goal is to get them to double, triple down on it. If you don't do this, your appointment show rate will plummet, and you will get people that blow smoke up your ass. They're not really looking to buy. Okay. Make sure you double back and say, hey, are you sure that this is what you want? Are you sure that this, it's going to work for you tomorrow morning? I'm putting you in a spot. I want to make sure that we don't have an empty session. Okay. Make sure you do that. It's a very hard thing to do, but it's going to make you look more trustworthy. If that's the case, and they double, triple down, you're all set, then you want to hit them with the referral ask. If you want to accelerate your growth, always 100% of the time, ask for the referral in the sales conversation. And you just say, awesome. Well, listen, one more thing. I hate to bother you, but a lot of people see a lot of success when they come in with a friend or family member to keep them accountable. Do you have anybody that you want to bring in for your first session? And we could give you guys 50% off your first month if you guys both signed up. Always ask. There's no reason not to ask. Okay. So that's the 7-stage sales process. I have more in-depth videos on every stage of this, but just to recap really quick, you've built rapport, you've established likeness with the person, you've been friendly with the person, you manage the expectations of here's how this call is going to go or this meeting is going to go. You've established that a decision is going to be made in this meeting. You've done discovery, which means you've asked at least 5 questions before selling anything at all. You, the salesperson, have presented the objections and let them overcome them. You have asked permission to sell, which is critical. You've asked permission to sell to them. You've followed the provide illicit language pattern. You've confirmed and gotten very concrete next steps in place. Then you have reaffirmed the sale by getting them to double or triple down. And cherry on top is you've asked for the referral. If you follow that process, you will close more sales, you will be way more professional, and you will retain clients longer than ever. Put that into your business and let me know how it goes. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Listen, if you found this helpful, first, I need you to subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers to really meet my own ego, but help more people in the industry. And if you like this, you can find more content just like this right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.